Hello, my name is Monica Robinson, and I would like to welcome you to our second video of Aunt Betty's story. This video includes chapters 4, 5, and part of chapter 6 of Aunt Betty's story, A Slave Narrative, written by Bethany Veney. It is about her first husband's courtship, marriage, separation, and motherhood. Some of this video's readers are Bethany Veney's direct descendants, and some are related through her husbands, Jerry Ficklin and Frank Veney. We gathered in the historic St. John's Church outside Luray, Virginia, in October of 2022. We recorded many of our readers of our 4 videos in the historic church. This church was founded in the early 1800s. We would like to think that Bethany may have visited this church during one of her trips to Virginia following the Civil War. We can be fairly confident that she would have visited this area of the county as she was enslaved nearby as a child. Thank you for tuning in.
Wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They that wait upon the Lord.
Year after year rolled on. Master Jonas Manifield lived 7 miles from us on the other side of the Blue Ridge, and he owned a likely young fellow called Jerry. We had always known each other, and now he wanted to marry me. Our masters were both willing, and there was nothing to hinder, except that there was no minister about there to marry us. So it happened one day there was a colored man, a peddler, with his cart, on the road, and Jerry brought him in. He said he was ready to minister for us. He asked us a few questions, which we answered in a satisfactory manner, and then he declared us husband and wife. I did not want him to make us promise that we would always be true to each other, forsaking all others as the white people do in their marriage service, because I knew that at any time our masters could compel us to break such a promise. So Jerry and I were happy, as under all circumstances we could well be. When he asked his master's consent to our marriage, he told him he had had thoughts of removing to Missouri. We were not dissuaded, for hearts that love are much the same in bond or free, in black or white. 8 or 10 months passed on, when one night my brother Stephen, who lived on the Blue Ridge, near Master Manifield, came to see me, and as we talked of many things, he spoke of Jerry in a way that instantly roused my suspicion. I said, "Tell me what is the matter. I know there is something. Is Jerry dead? Is he sold? Tell me what it is." I saw his dread to speak, and that frightened me the more. At last he said, "'Tis no use, Betty, you've got to know it. Old Look-a-Here's people are all in jail for debt." Old Look-a-Here was a nickname by which Manifield was known by the colored people far and near. The next day was Saturday, and I hurried to complete my task in the cornfield, and then asked my master if I could go to see Jerry. He objected at first, but at last gave me a pass to see my brother and be gone until Monday morning. Jerry saw us as we came along the road through the prison bars, and the jailer allowed us to talk together there, not, however, without a witness to all that we might say. We had committed no offense against God or man. Jerry had not, and yet, like base criminals, we were denied even the consolation of privacy. This was a necessary part of the system of American slavery. Neither wife nor mother could intervene to soften its rigors one jot. Several months passed, and Manifield was still unable to redeem his property, and they were at last put up to auction and sold to the highest bidder.
Frank White, a slave trader, bought the entire lot and proceeded at once to make up a gang for the southern market. Arrangements were made to start Friday morning, and on Thursday afternoon, chained together, the gang were taken across the stream and encamped on its banks. White then went to Jerry and, taking the handcuffs from his wrist, told him to go and stay the night with his wife and see if he could persuade her to go with him. If he could, he would buy her, and so they need not be separated. He would pass that way in the morning and see. Of course, Jerry was only too glad to come, and at first I thought I would go with him. Then came the consciousness that this inducement was only a sham, and that once exposed for sale in a southern market, the bidder with the largest sum of money would be our purchaser, singly quite as surely as together, and if separated, what would I do in a strange land? No, I would not go. It was far better for me to stay where I was for miles and miles. I knew everyone, and everyone knew me. Then came the wish to secret ourselves together, in the mountains or elsewhere, till White should be gone. But to do this, detection was sure. Then we remembered that White had trusted us in letting him come to me, and we felt ashamed for a moment, as if we had tried to cheat. But what right had White to carry him away, or even to own him at all? Our poor, ignorant reasoning found it hard to understand his rights or our own. And we at last decided that as soon as it was light, Jerry should take to the mountains, and when White was surely gone, either I would join him there, and we would make for the north together, or he would come back, go to White's mother, who lived a few miles distant, and tell her he would work for her and obey her, but he would never go south to be worked to death in the rice swamps or the cotton fields. We talked late into the night, and at last, in the silence and dread, worn out with sorrow and fear, my head on his shoulder, we both dropped asleep. Daylight was upon us when we waked. The sad consciousness of our condition and our utter helplessness overpowered us. I opened the door, and there was my mistress, with pail in hand, going to the spring for water. "Oh, what shall I do? Where shall I go?" cried Jerry as he saw her. "Have no fear," I said. "Go right along. I know mistress will never betray you." And with a bound, he was over the fence, into the fields, and off to the mountains. In a very short time, White and his poor, doomed company came along and called for Jerry. I had taken my pail to milk the cows, and seeing me, he sung out. "Woman, where is Jerry?" I said. "I don't know where Jerry is," I answered. Then turning to Kibler, who hearing the outcry now came out, he said, "You told me that woman wouldn't lie, and you know well enough she is lying now, when she says she doesn't know where that rascal is." Kibler answered very slowly and thoughtfully, "I never knowed her to lie, but maybe this time. White then turned to me and said, "I took off his handcuffs and let him go to you. You had no business to serve me so." It was true. I did not know where Jerry was at that time. We had agreed that we would meet that night near the blacksmith's old shop on the other side of the run, and that was all I knew of his whereabouts, though he had not been gone long enough to be far away. It was true he had trusted us, and I felt very badly. But what else could we have done? Kind reader, what think you? I then told him that Jerry had said he was willing to work and would go to his mother's and serve her, but never, if he could help it, would he be carried south. Then White tried to bargain with Kibler for my purchase, saying he would give any price he should name for me, because he knew I would then find Jerry. But it was no use. Kibler had a kind spot in his heart and would not consent to let me go. So the slave trader moved on with his human cattle. 5 miles on the road lived David McCoy, another slave trader. When White reached his house, it was agreed by them that if McCoy could find Jerry within 2 days, he should bring him on, and they would meet at Stanton, Virginia.
The place where I was to meet Jerry was across the run, in a cornfield near the blacksmith's shop. The time Friday night. It had rained hard all day, and the stream was swollen, and the pouring and the rushing at a fearful rate. I waited till everybody was in bed and asleep, when I lighted my pine knot and started for the pass. It was still raining, and the night was very dark. Only by torch could I see a step before me, and when I attempted to wade in, as I did in many different places, I found it was no use. I should surely be drowned if I persisted. So disappointed and grieved, I gave up and went home. The next morning, I was able to get over on a horseback to the milk and the cows, but I neither heard nor saw anything from Jerry. Saturday night came. I knew well that, if not caught by White Jerry, could be round. At last everyone was in bed and all still. I waited and listened, and I listened and I waited, and then I heard his step at the door. I hurriedly opened it. He came in. His clothes were still damp and stiff from the rain of yesterday. He was frightened and uneasy. He had been hiding around in different places, constantly fearing detection. He had seen me from behind in an old blacksmith shop when I had tried the night before with my pine knot to ford the stream. And he was glad, he said, when he saw me go back, for he knew I should be carried down by the current and be drowned if I had persisted. I went to my mistress' bedroom and asked if I may not go to the cellar. She knew at once what I meant and whispered softly, "Betty, has Jerry come?" Then, without waiting for a reply, added, "Get him some milk and light bread and butter." I was not long in doing so. The poor fellow ate like one famishing. Then he wanted to know all that had happened and what White had said. When he found he was gone, he walked a long time and tried to devise some plans for our mutual safety and possibly escape from the slavery altogether. But every way we looked, the path was beset with danger and exposure. We were both utterly disheartened, but sleep came in at last, and for the time being relieved us from all our fears. In the morning, which was Sunday, we had our breakfast together, and we had hours past began to feel like comforted. After dinner, we walked out to the field and strolled about some time, and then we were ready to go back to the house. We each took an armful of fodder along the horses. As we laid it down and turned into the house, David McCoy rode up on a horseback. He saw Jerry at once and called him to come to the fence. The excitement of the last days of the fasting and the fear had completely cowed and broken whatever manhood or even a brute courage a slave might by any possibility but presumed at any time that he possessed of. The last remains of their quality and poor Jerry gone, he mutely obeyed, and when he said with oath, McCoy commanded him to mount the horse behind him. He mutely seated himself there. McCoy then said to me, "Go to the house and bring Jerry's clothes." "Never," I screamed back to him, "never, not to save your miserable life." But Jerry said, "Oh, Betty, it's no use. We can help. We can help." I knew it was so. I still stifled with anger in my grief, but this was the little bundle into which I tucked a testament from someone that had given me, and shook hands goodbye with him. So we parted forever in this world.
We hope you enjoy this, our second video of 4 of Aunt Betty's story about Bethany Veney. This video is funded by a generous donation from the Virginia Humanities and from the Jerome L. Green Foundation, as recommended by Karen Brooks Hopkins, whose donation is in memory of Sister Judy Brown. Now we hope you will continue to learn about this amazing woman, Bethany Veney, by watching our third video.
Teach me